I hope you all enjoyed lunch. Let's all give Rob Williams a round of applause for picking such amazing food over the last few days. I don't know about you guys, but when I go to conferences, the food is horrible, and I think every single meal here has been great. So kudos to you, Rob. All right, so we're going to start this afternoon session with talking a little bit about drowning prevention legislation, a look at what's happened here in California, some other key states, and what's happening on the federal level. So as you all know, my name's Megan Ferraro. I'm the executive director of the ZAC Foundation. But really, I'm here talking to you all about legislation, but California has been paving the way as far as legislative activity and is really known as a leader in the country. And you may know this or you may not, but other states all around the country are looking to California to learn from you, to learn from your best practices, to learn from what hasn't worked, and to try to replicate and mirror those strategies in their own states. So before we begin, I just needed to acknowledge that progress. You know, in the 1930s, the first California Chief Lifeguard Association was formed. In 2012, the National Drowning Prevention Alliance Conference was held in San Diego. Senate Bill 442, which enhanced pool safety features that Julie Lopiccolo and her husband, Jonathan St. Clair, were really heavily involved in. Somehow you guys figured out a way to make swimming lessons and drowning prevention classes deemed mandatory during the pandemic. I don't know how you did that, but I can tell you I was on phone calls every other day with states across the country trying to figure out how to get swimming lessons open in their states. And everyone was so impressed by the fact that you were able to do that here in California. So take a minute to give yourselves a round of applause for how much work you've done in this space. There are a few pieces of legislation pending here in California that I thought it might be helpful to share with you, although I'm sure you already know a lot about them. The first is Assembly Bill 2650, which is being led by Assemblyman Rumbola, and it expands access to water safety education and swimming lessons. It strengthens pool safety requirements, and it broadens public outreach and education on water safety. Now, Assemblyman Rumbola couldn't be here today, but he wanted to share this message with all of you.
Thank you for inviting me to join you all and speak at this year's Water Safety Summit.
Can you guys hear it?
My name is Assemblymember Dr. Joaquin Arambula, and I represent the 31st Assembly District in Fresno County. I appreciate your invitation to be a part of this important event. Today, I speak to you as the father of 3 young daughters and as an emergency room physician. During my decade working as an emergency room doctor, I saw the agonies that families suffered when a loved one died because of drowning. In the Central Valley, when the heat of summer is oppressive, too many families from our disadvantaged neighborhoods and communities seek relief in places like rivers, canals, and lakes. The lure of the cool water is just too inviting, and this can lead to drowning tragedies, to family grief, and to heartache. This has propelled me to introduce Assembly Bill 2650, which will strengthen California's efforts to prevent drownings that happen far too frequently in California. It will expand access to parents and children to water safety, education, and swimming lessons. It will strengthen residential pool safety requirements and broaden public outreach and education on water safety. Most significantly, AB 2650 helps our state declare the importance of taking on drowning as a public health issue that can be solved. My bill emphasizes how crucial it is that everyone has the skills and knowledge to stay safe in the water. I also want to share with you another reason why I wanted to introduce this bill, because of a young man named Neng Tao. He was a senior at Edison High School that I went to in my district. In 2017, he was about to graduate with honors as a valedictorian of his class. He had been accepted to UC Berkeley. People who knew him said he planned to major in political science and pre-med, that he wanted to be a pharmacist and maybe one day run for public office. He was only 18 years old. Nang Tao's future was so bright, but just weeks before graduation, he drowned. It is in Nang Tao's honor that I hope that AB 2650 builds a coalition among schools, parents, children, and members of our community who are committed to the prevention of drowning. We intend to use schools as our trusted messenger in this cause to connect children and their families with the resources available in their communities to gain these skills. AB 2650 also will permanently define water safety education and swim lessons as an essential public health service. And this bill will upgrade and strengthen California's Residential Pool Safety Act barrier requirements, the definitions, as well as enforcement. It will ensure that no child has access to a residential pool without the active supervision of an adult. I am proud to be working with our co-sponsors, the California Coalition for Children's Safety and the Health and the Drowning Prevention Foundation on this important legislation. Thank you to everyone at the Water Safety Summit for your work you are doing in drowning prevention. Together, we can deter these tragic drowning deaths from happening. We can protect our children and make our communities safer.
So really nice of him to take the time and record that video for us, and exciting to see what happens with that piece of legislation. The other piece of legislation that I wanted to share with you is authored by Senator Newman, and it's Senate Bill 855. The goal of this piece of legislation is to address the lack of quantitative data around drowning. We've talked a lot about the lack of drowning data available to us and its ability to impact the work that we're doing. They want to create a statewide childhood drowning collection system through a 3-year pilot with the California Department of Public Health. And those pilot results will be analyzed by a panel of experts and will be reported out to the legislature on ways to have more consistent and complete data. And so here's a message from Senator Newman.
Hello, I'm State Senator Josh Newman, and I have the honor of representing California's 29th Senate District, which includes parts of Orange, Los Angeles, and San Bernardino counties. I want to start by congratulating the California Water Safety Coalition on its successful launch. In 2017, I was proud to serve as the author of SB 442, the California Swimming Pool Safety Act, supported by a broad coalition of California pediatricians and advocates from across the state, which mandated additional common sense redundant barriers to reduce the likelihood of residential child pool drownings. Despite the passage of SB 442, developing and implementing holistic and statewide policy solutions remains challenging due to the continued lack of critical quantitative data about drowning. Policymakers, public health experts, and advocates continually bump up against this lack of crucial information when discussing childhood drownings because California still does not maintain a statewide childhood death reporting system. As a result, whatever data is available is often inconsistent and incomplete, hampering the effective monitoring and analysis of trends and risk factors, thereby hindering the comprehensive evaluation of drowning prevention strategies. To address this gap in relevant data, I recently introduced SB 855, the Childhood Drowning Data Collection Pilot Program, which is sponsored by the American Academy of Pediatrics California and the California Alliance for YMCAs. When implemented, SB 855 will create a statewide childhood drowning data collection system through a 3-year pilot program to be administered by the California Department of Public Health. Upon completion of the pilot, the department will consult with a group of experts on childhood drowning prevention and then submit a comprehensive report to the legislature. I look forward to continuing to work with the Water Safety Coalition on this legislation, and I commend and thank you for your efforts in reducing the number of children and adults who die or who are disabled as a result of drownings or near drownings in our wonderful state. Thank you.
So great to have both of them taking the time to put these messages together for us. So I thought it might be interesting for me to share with you some things that are happening in other states that could be relevant to what's happening here in California. But if nothing else, it's just a look at how other activists and advocates around the country are kind of putting their resources to work for water safety and drowning prevention. And so I'll start with Texas. In the last legislative cycle in Texas, so in 2021, there were 6 unique pieces of legislation throughout the state. The first of which were so I'll start by saying that from June of 2020, that month, to June of 2021, there was a 130% increase in drownings in Texas. And so what that meant was you had an entire state that was incredibly motivated. You had legislators that were tired of hearing about their constituents drowning and wanting to really make an impact and drive down the rate of drowning in Texas. And so pieces of legislation that otherwise wouldn't have gotten momentum really got the attention of lawmakers, and it was kind of quickly moving through the process. So those 6 unique pieces of legislation covered various different segments of the population, the first of which was around signage. So there were 2 pieces of legislation led by a family out of Corpus Christi who lost their son on the beach in Texas. And those pieces of legislation were related to increasing lifeguard usage and dollars allocated for lifeguards and signage around Corpus Christi. So billboards that would really display current rip currents, whether or not lifeguards were on duty, whether or not it was safe to be around water on that particular day. The piece of legislation around billboards unfortunately did not pass, but what did pass was expanded funding for beach lifeguards on the beaches in Corpus Christi, Texas. So that was really exciting for the state. The next piece of legislation, there were 2 pieces of legislation around swim schools, and that was led by a family who lost their child while he was at a swim school. And so the family really wanted to ensure that there were some better, guardrails around how swim school facilities were licensed, how they were maintained, the certifications of the staff working at those facilities. Those pieces of legislation received a lot of attention not only throughout the state of Texas, but throughout the country. The U.S. Swim Schools Association was involved in trying to help educate lobbyists and legislators on the importance of enabling access to swim schools all throughout the state. Neither of those pieces of legislation passed, but we expect that in the next legislative cycle, they will come up again. The next piece of legislation was around HOAs, and this related to a family who lost their child after an HOA told them that they could not fence their backyard pool. This piece of legislation did pass. It was led by an organization called the Judah Brown Project. It wasn't their child who drowned in this event, but rather they were working with a family who lost their child. And so now the law in Texas is that no HOA can tell a pool owner whether or not they can or cannot fence their pool. So that was a really exciting piece of legislation in the state of Texas. And this last one here relates to daycares and summer camps. All too often in the drowning prevention community, we hear about children who drown while they're at summer camps. And so this particular piece of legislation requires that any daycare or summer camp evaluate all of their children before they bring them to water and put them in groups of swimmers and non-swimmers. And those non-swimmers must be wearing a PFD before they get to the water. And that facility that's receiving those children must have a list of children who are considered non-swimmers. And those life jackets and PFDs must stay on those children the entire time they're at the facility. This piece of legislation did not pass. But as you all know, here in California, that would have had a significant difference on many of the child loss that we have seen in this state over the last several years. We expect that this piece of legislation will be picked back up in the next legislative cycle and that it will pass. There's a lot of excitement and energy around it. The next state that I wanted to tell you about is Florida. If I can get there. Okay. So you may have heard about the Every Child a Swimmer campaign in Florida. So last fall, the Florida legislature passed a law called Every Child a Swimmer. What this piece of legislation does is that it requires every public school to notify parents of any child entering kindergarten about water safety and drowning prevention. Parents are asked if their children have ever had swimming lessons. If the parents say no, they're given a list of swim schools right near the school that they can bring their child to for swimming lessons. A really exciting way to educate parents and to ensure that as much of the population is aware of water safety and drowning prevention resources as possible. This particular bill has no cost to the government. It's not a mandate for swimming lessons, let's be clear about that, but it is a goal to create awareness for parents about their obligation to teach their children how to swim. I found a really interesting piece of data that I thought you might all find interesting as well. And that is that according to Florida Tax Watch, if all 298
deaths that occurred between children ages 5 and younger from 2017 to 2019 could have been avoided, the economic risk reduction would have been over $3 billion. And so when you're thinking about how do I talk to legislators about this, how do I get them interested and engaged in the work that I'm trying to do, I think that's a stat that really speaks volumes and is one that you are welcome to use. I'd be happy to send the source to anyone that's interested. So next, I thought I would just talk with you a little bit about what's happening at the federal level. And so I'll tell you about the Virginia Graham-Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act. The Virginia Graham-Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act really began after the June 2002 drowning death due to pool entrapment of Virginia Graham-Baker, the little girl here in the red shirt. Shortly after Graham died, her parents and her grandfather, Secretary Jim Baker, started to talk with legislators about this really serious risk in our country. And for several years, this bill that they were trying to pass in the Senate, the Virginia Graham-Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act, it kind of floundered. It was hard for legislators to understand why they should be paying attention to this. Then in June of 2007, the little girl on the right, Abigail Taylor, became eviscerated in her country club swimming pool. 9 months later, she died. About a month after Abby's evisceration, Zachary Archer Koon, the little boy in the middle, drowned when his arm became entrapped in the swimming pool of his family's backyard pool. So after these really sad and horrific deaths occurred, just a few months after Zachary's death and a few months before Abby's death, the Senate passed the Virginia Graham-Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act. Now, why is this so important? Well, it's the first ever piece of legislation dedicated to pool and spa safety here in the United States. And it's the first time the federal government really paid attention to this crisis in our country. This piece of legislation is really a perfect example of how the federal government should work. And in about 18 months, it did work. The most important thing about this piece of legislation is that it made dangerous and non-compliant drains illegal to sell. So while this legislation only applied to public pools and spas, what it did was eliminate these dangerous drain covers from the market. So while it couldn't reach directly into residential homes, it made it impossible for residential pool owners to purchase these dangerous drain covers. So this particular component, which was added by Senator Klobuchar from Minnesota, Abby's home state, was really incredible and an amazing way for us to reach residential homeowners in a passive way, really. You can no longer buy those dangerous drain covers. I'll show you some pictures of what they look like next, so that the next time you're at a family friend's home and they've had their pool for a long time, you might want to look at their drain cover and just see if it looks like it's in good shape. There are safety devices and aftermarket products that have been added to pumps, but now any new pumps and backup systems are built with these devices in place. The most important part, really, that I want to talk to you about is this Pool Safely education campaign that came along with the Virginia Graham-Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act. So not only did this act eliminate these dangerous drain covers from the market, but it also created the first campaign for water safety and drowning prevention awareness in the United States. So this Pool Safely campaign is housed by the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And it not only educates residents in our country and pool owners and pool operators about the importance of drain entrapment and suction entrapment avoidance, but it raises awareness about water safety, swimming lessons, layers of protection. And it also created a grant program. And this grant program says that any state or municipality that adopts a Virginia Graham-Baker-like piece of legislation in their community is eligible for grants. About $1 million each year is eligible. You all here in Orange County, or even throughout the state of California, are eligible for these Pool Safely grants. So if you are thinking about pool programming, look to the CPSC, see when these grant dollars are going to be available, and apply for them. They're meant to be used for water safety awareness, swimming lessons, but also to educate the pool operator community on the importance of checking to see if the drain covers are in good working condition ensuring that the drain covers are properly in place and that they're not expired. So this is a look at what compliant drain covers look like. So you'll see that they are not flat, they are rounded, they are domed, they are geometric shapes on top of some of them, so that it makes it really difficult for body parts, clothing, or hair to become suction flat against those drain covers. So I thought that might be just helpful for you to see what that looks like. So national priorities. So now we have Congress paying attention that we have a real public health threat in drowning. They're recognizing where drowning is for the population at large, right? It doesn't just affect young children, but it affects people of all ages, and we see that in the population that's represented here today. We have big fans in Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz from Florida, Senators Klobuchar in Minnesota, and Blumenthal in Connecticut. And so we're talking about what's next in drowning prevention, and we've got a captivated and engaged audience. We're finding that the Pool Safely campaign is up for reauthorization through the reauthorization of the Virginia Graham Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act. Now, this reauthorization that's coming up in the next month or so will not touch in any way, shape, or form the technical side or the maintenance and construction of pools, because we've found that it works. There have been no entrapment-related deaths in public pools or spas in the United States since the Virginia Graham Baker Pool and Spa Safety Act was passed. But the softer side of the VGB is being revisited and improved upon. The infrastructure of the resources provided for the CPSC will be strengthened and improved upon. The goal is to provide expanded funding for that Pool Safely campaign for the next 5 to 10 years, and there will be more oversight over how that money is used. We will see a more robust Pool Safely campaign. There may be many of you in this room that have never heard of the Pool Safely campaign, but it's our hope that that will change in the next several years. Congress has also come to us and said, what can we do to make an even bigger impact on how people are drowning today? And so we're talking about things like lifeguard shortages, isolation fencing, swimming lessons, PFDs. And so Congress is seriously considering how they can use their power to address some of these particular crises that we're experiencing here in the United States. There's a potential for presidential and congressional declarations of National Water Safety Month, which is being led by the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance. We heard from Rowdy a few hours ago about his role within PHTA, and I expect that there will be statewide efforts led throughout the country by various PHTA associations. Last year, we saw that the United Nations declared July 25th as World Drowning Prevention Day. It's also my birthday. How cool is that? Each year, the National Drowning Prevention Alliance holds a water safety conference that convenes stakeholders, first responders, legislators, policymakers, and advocates from all over the country to convene and really talk through areas of expertise, share best practices, talk about shifts and trends that we're seeing, and how we can support the work that each other is doing throughout the country. We also have something called Families United, which is a collection of family foundations and individuals who have lost a child or a loved one to drowning. That began about 10 years ago and has really evolved quite a bit since then. It's become a cornerstone of NDPA and has become a great resource for legislators around the state to really ask questions and learn more about water safety and drowning prevention. And then, as you heard me talk about yesterday, we have this U.S. National Water Safety Action Plan, which, as you heard yesterday, is that 10-year plan focused on 5 evidence-based strategies along with data and public health surveillance. The goal of that is to really provide structure and to achieve a common goal, and we all know what that common goal is. We, want to have a space where government, multilateral organizations, and civil societies can work together and be really effective in driving down this rate of drowning in our country. And, your involvement in this is really what's most important. At the bottom here, you'll see just a list of organizations involved in the steering committee of NDPA. Another interesting thing that, if you're wondering how to strengthen, ensuring that your pools are up to code, that they are safe, that they're following the latest trends, there's something called the ISPSC. And in 2021, a new code was passed. Hundreds of localities around the country adopted each year. 36 localities in California here, including right here in Orange County, have optional adoption of this code. And it promotes usage of automatic pool covers, fencing, door alarms, self-closing, self-latching gates. It talks about chemical use and storage and really everything in between. And so we've really been excited to see that many states, 19 of them, allow for adoption, and 14, it's mandatory that each year that a new ISPSC code comes out, that it be adopted in those states. This year, Maryland, Minnesota, Missouri, and North Dakota have the bill up, and we feel fairly confident that this code will be adopted in those 4 states. So we're excited about that. You all have that code adopted, which means that you can apply for those pool safely dollars. So please, when you're thinking about how to provide additional funding for your community for additional swimming lessons, please do look for those pool safely grant dollars. So I'm talking to you all about legislation. You're probably wondering, will the California Water Safety Coalition be involved in lobbying and advocacy legislation up in Sacramento? And the answer to that is no. There are incredible advocates in this room and throughout the state that are either registered lobbyists or working for the California Academy of Pediatrics, or amazing advocates like the Jasper Ray Foundation, the Ben Carlson Memorial Foundation, Marcia Kerr is here, Marianne Downing, incredible advocates that have really gone to Sacramento and testified about the importance of particular pieces of legislation. Our goal here is not to be involved in those legislative activities, but really to inform the development of them, to inform policy, to understand, geez, if this legislation around data collection is passed, how can we support that? How can we help analyze that data? How can we pull partners together? How can we convene stakeholders to ensure that all the information is flowing in the way that it should? So, this individual advocacy that you've all been doing for much of your career, please continue doing it and let us know how we can help support your work in any way. And, thank you. If you want to learn more about the Zach Foundation and about some of the things that I talked about, please visit our website, thezacfoundation.org. I'll be available in the back of the room if you have any questions. Otherwise, thank you for listening. All right, I think Rob and Will are up next.
Thank you, Megan, very much for that informative discussion. We are on the home stretch. I know we've kept you for a long 2 days, and we appreciate everything that has been going on here. So this next 45 minutes, or however long it takes, we want it to be an inclusive discussion with you. We want it to be openly honest and conversational, and hear from you. If you have comments and we have time, we're going to put it out in the audience. So make sure we first want to thank everybody for being here. We want to discuss a little bit what we are doing from this point forward. We've talked how we've got here. We've talked how we are involved in things, but now what are we going to do? And there's been a couple comments over the last 6 months or so about, especially one that resonated with us a lot. And the person's in the room, but I'm not going to identify him, or him, obviously. But it was a comment of, what are you going to do for me in my profession, my role as a water safety expert or drowning prevention expert? And it really resonated, because that's why we're here. What are we going to do for you? And that's a really good question to ask. And we heard this morning on the diversity discussion about why. Well, we're here to say, what do you want? And that's what we want to know about. So Will and I started this, kind of a brief, quick history. Will and I started talking about this late 2020, after we got canceled in the summit in 2020. And about our second or third meeting with Will and I, he made a comment to me, and he's like, we can't make this the Will and Rob show. And it was really a good comment, but we wanted to close with the Will and Rob show today. And again, like I said, it's going to be with you as a part of it. But first of all, a lot went into this conference, and it started with a vision from the Ben Carlson Foundation and Chris Carlson. So I want to make sure Chris is absolutely recognized. And then the partnership with Karen Koon and the Zach Foundation and her basically loaning / giving us Megan Ferraro, and the work that Michael and Matthew, because I'm sure all of you have been communicating with them at one point or another to get into this room. That camp and the Zach Foundation is amazing. And again, thank you guys. And not that I'm going to skip anybody, because I know there's a lot of people here, but Julie LaPiccolo and the Jasper Ray Foundation, basically when Will and I were talking about this, we said, we need Julie. And Julie told us no. How many times? Like 4. At least 4. But like I said when I was with the Orange County Task Force, I'm not taking no for an answer. If I'm going to do this, Julie has to be involved. So she finally said yes. And again, to the Jasper Ray Foundation, especially you, Julie, thank you for being here. And like I said, this is your organization. So as we build this, as we grow this, it's no longer about us and how we got here today. It's about you and where we want to go in the future. So thank you to all of you here too. So, and there was a few moments in December, January that we thought we might not be here. And so we're happy we are here. And hopefully we'll be able to move forward and make this thing happen in the future as well. So moving on, what do we want to talk about today? Will's going to go over a little bit of the definition of success, a little bit of our priority efforts in the coming year and a half, our organizational priorities, what we want to do specifically as a coalition. And like I said, if there's questions, comments, discussion points during this, after this, please feel free. Because like I said, we want to make this more of your talk instead of us up here as the Will and Wallop Show.
Okay. We're going to breeze through this pretty quickly, but you've seen this before in Matthew and Michael and Rob's first presentation. These 6 boxes are how we plan to judge ourselves moving forward. You can take a quick look at them now. They're going to be made available to you later, so I'm just going to move on. But it's important for you to know that these definitions of success have really informed what we're looking to do in the next year and a half. So these 4 things on the bottom are important to us. Number 1, regularly convene water safety stakeholders. So events like this, webinars like this, meeting spots like this, where you can have a Corey and you can have a Jack in the same space, 2 very different jobs, same goal, but in the same place, right? So we want to be convening people. We heard about the National Water Safety Action Plan, and that's coming out. The National Water Safety Action Plan has a cliff, essentially, like there's an end to it, at which point it's going to be up to the states and people in local communities to take the ball. So we are and have been working on getting ready to basically catch the ball and then run with it and adapt that plan of how we're going to move forward in the state. So coordinating how the national plan is processed and implemented here statewide, and then how you can implement it locally is going to be a priority of ours in the next year and a half, 2 years. The hub came from one of the working groups, this idea, and basically we had several groups describe the same thing, that we needed a central repository for information and that sort of thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, but coming up with something that looks like a hub is going to be a priority of ours. And then lastly, looking at definitions, messaging, and roles, or like resource toolkits, is really important. This is about us getting on the same page and speaking the same language and making sure that we are communicating to the public in a similar fashion. So definitions of success informing our priority efforts. And the way that we're going to work through describing those priority efforts is going to be based on the structure of the coalition itself. So one of the slides a little while, I think yesterday, it showed an org chart with the network, working groups, advisory council, and the board. So we're going to work from left to right, and this is going to be framed in a way, what we're trying to do is frame it in a way where you can think, how do I get involved? Where do I get involved? And it might be at the network level, it might be in a working group level, it might be in another level. Also, we've had several questions about financial sustainability, and so we're going to address some of that towards the end. And again, honest, transparent. We don't have a lot of money right now. We've got big dreams. We've got a little bit of a plan of how to get there, but we do want to cover a little bit of that. So this is how we're going to be organizing the flow of the discussion. And like Rob said, very open today. If you have a question, like seriously, raise your hand and let's have that conversation. We will be here afterwards if you want to continue the conversation privately or whatever. So, Rob. Me.
Me? Is it me?
I'll do it. Okay. So the very
No, it is me, right?
It is you.
Yeah, it is me.
Yeah.
We talked about everybody helping us and everything. So it's like the whole thing is as we see, open and inclusive. We want to be inclusive, not exclusive. So anybody that really wants to be here, we want them here. We want to be able to be know what's going on around us. And so the more sectors, the more geographic areas, the more lakes, rivers, canals, ditches, pools, bathtubs, oceans, individuals that are in those sectors, we want you here. And what are we missing? I mean, we've not really talked about elderly drowning in this last 2 days. So what are we missing, and where are we going to get those people? And where are we going to concentrate, and how are we going to go to that? Next slide. We have a mailing list available on our website. A lot of you have been receiving a lot of mailings from us. If you don't want them, you can unsubscribe. But if you do want them, or if you aren't on it, please sign up. If you have a friend, tell them to sign up. If you have a friend that doesn't really know about it, sign them up. We want as many people as we can. And the more people that learn about us, the more people we can get involved. And like I said, what are we missing? Anybody have any ideas of what we are missing in this space? What did we skip the last 2 days? Yeah. Realtors.
Real estate. Yeah.
Real estate. Awesome. Didn't talk about real estate people. What else? Yeah.
Master planning and general plan. I'm just repeating because there's people watching too.
Yeah. What else?
Marcia?
We work so much with the lifeguards in the ocean, water, open bodies of water, which is really important. But I personally am very interested also in residential pools. And I think that we should include more product safety and also engineers and design and that type of thing. We had some examples out in the exhibit area of some new products, and I think that's actually really interesting to everyone.
Fantastic. Come on, there's got to be more. Saw a hand in the back.
Pete.
Sandy, did you say you have your hand up? Oh.
Pete?
Yeah, underwriters and insurance.
Insurance, the insurance industry.
Like a club,
Yeah.
it only skims the surface on prevention and expectation. And that's where I think we could be a real good resource.
So insurance and underwriter, was it?
Adult swim lessons.
Adult swim lessons. Yeah.
Very good.
Huge.
Home inspectors.
Home inspectors. Okay. So as we can, yep.
Another one was discussed. Also, finding out your local landscape companies, your large local landscape companies, talk to their department heads, and hopefully that information will get filtered down so that landscapers and gardeners that are working in residential homes don't leave gates open or can inform the homeowner if their gate has been left open to help keep kids safer.
Great. So as we kind of advance this conversation of who are we missing, there's this idea about drowning or water safety adjacent people, right? So everything that you described, it's pretty easy to justify why an insurance company should be talking about drowning prevention. But something that we want to be thinking about is who might be an untraditional partner. And this is all about attaching water safety to other agendas. So when I was in Seattle, something that the Seattle Children's Hospital did really well was fund loads of water safety programming through obesity prevention, right? Attaching water safety and drowning prevention to the disaster risk reduction conversation. Lots of dollars going towards that in California. A climate change agenda. So it's important that we think about these drowning prevention adjacent. Caltrans is a great example, right? The number of cars that are driving off of roads into rivers and people drowning in rivers is a lot annually in California. To my knowledge, Caltrans is not in the room. They should be maybe next time. Pete?
Church groups specifically.
Sure. Communities. And actually, we had a panelist say that, right? That, yeah, if you can get into a faith community where there's already trust, somebody else has gotten all the people there, all you need to do is show up, right? That's really good. So as we think about this network, this is everybody, right? If you have an interest and you want to be involved, you are part of the network, right? So just think about this as anybody and everybody who is either drowning prevention direct, lifeguard, drowning prevention direct, pool builder, or drowning prevention adjacent, some of these other partners that we're describing. That's the network. So, yep.
I was just going to say, maybe we can all, we had talked, oh, thank you. We had talked a little bit about sharing some of the information from the National Water Safety Action Plan. You actually had set up a committee meeting by phone when you were in Australia with a doctor that studied problems of drowning near open bodies of water, like schools that had walkways near rivers and that type of thing. And that's another thing that we can look at that you just mentioned, that we had a recommendation into the national plan. So maybe we can look at the plan and incorporate some of those ideas.
Yes, that's coming up too. Okay, so thinking of the network, again, everybody, these are going to be some more of the concrete action things that are coming up in the next few months. So I'm going to cover the three of these things. My brain works quite like in a line based on time, but all of these three things happen somewhat at the same time and overlap. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the governor's proclamation designating May as California Drowning Prevention Month. So Nadina Rigsby has been working with the California governor since 1984. She started this work when Jerry Brown was in for the first time. And every month, the governor basically declares the month of May as Drowning Prevention Month. What does that mean for you? When this comes out, this is an opportunity for you to share it, get media, promote it internally, externally. So this is coming out. We will be communicating to you some specific actions and providing some instructions on what you might do when this happens in May. The second one is very similar to that. Local proclamations happen, usually in the month of May or sometimes it's the summer. So this is an example from 2018, but the city of Irvine, says we're going to declare this as a water safety summer. Again, this is an opportunity for you to get media, for you to get involved, for you to push this out. What we plan on doing, and I have to thank Marianne Downing for helping me understand how they do this. She does a great job in San Diego of sending out a template and then saying, if you live in Carlsbad, you go to the Carlsbad City Council. You live in Oceanside, you go to the Oceanside City Council. We're going to work on the county, right? And so what we plan on doing is sending out to you a template. Thank you, Marianne. We're just going to copy it. We're going to send you a template of what a water safety proclamation might look like for your city, for your town, for your county, whatever. What can happen from there is usually an event, a local event where you announce that with mayors and councilors.
Many of you have already done this, and we applaud you for doing it. So if you have templates, send them to us. We can come up. We don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
So please bring them to us.
So, and this leads to when you do your local proclamation, some sort of local event, and there are lots of different flavors of this, okay? So usually it looks like announcing the local proclamation. So you get the mayor there, you get the city councilors there. The water safety challenge from Stop Drowning Now is like a full-on built program. If you're starting from scratch, I highly recommend, reaching out to the Stop Drowning Now folks. And again, in the next couple of weeks leading up to this, we will be sending out information. So if you're looking for an event and you have nothing, we will put you in contact with them to look at that. In San Diego, Nicole, you guys do April Fool's Day still? Yeah. So April Fool's Day, old school YMCA program. Yep, that's coming. That's coming. Yeah. So there's all sorts of different activities.
I want to see the beach lifeguards do that.
Yeah. So Marianne, Joe, Bailey, when I'm talking on the phone with Marianne and I say, Marianne, what does this look like? And she says, there's so many different opportunities. Like, who's the lifeguard chief from Seal Beach? He should be doing a cannonball contest with the mayor of Seal Beach at a local city event. So I want to see a cannonball contest with you and the mayor of Seal Beach, right? Marianne Downing does like a life jacket fashion show. So this is Jim Desmond, who's a county supervisor in San Diego, in his life jacket talking on the news, right? So there's lots of different flavors of what this event might look like. Here is a calendar of things coming up. A local event that's planned might coincide with one of these dates. Maybe it doesn't, that's okay. May, usually Drowning Prevention Month. May 15th through 21st is a newly legislated California Drowning Prevention Week for children. Do you have any other info on this? So Doug and Elena Forbes worked to pass some legislation last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, 2022 will be the first, we think? Yeah, we're pretty sure that this 2022 will be the first week, Drowning Prevention Week for children. Beach Safety Week, 23rd to 30th, National Boating Safety Week. Wear your life jacket to work day is a really good opportunity for lots of social media posts and that sort of stuff. World Largest Swim Lesson, World Drowning Prevention Day. So Megan's birthday, yeah. So all of this to say, again, these three things, the governor's proclamation, the local events, and the local proclamations are opportunities for you to start a conversation, generate some media, provide educational information and messaging out to the community. So you can do these things, share the proclamation, try and get your local community to do a proclamation, host a media or community event. We are planning to send out to you more information on this with specific instructions and templates and that sort of thing. Before we go on, any comments, questions about any of this? Ideas? Yes.
I was wondering if there would be a video, Sandy Needle, of how to fit a life jacket.
So loads of resources and videos on that. That's also something that Marianne does really well on the news with the county supervisors in San Diego, is she makes them put the life jackets on, and then on the news she's going, look at this, it needs to be fitted properly and stuff like that. Great opportunity to get involved with your local officials. Okay. Joe,
Rip Current Awareness Week. So.
When is Rip Current Awareness Week?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty. Is it different? Is it different than Beach Safety Week? Like, it is different. Okay, so there's also Rip Current Awareness Week coming up, and there's lots of National Weather Service and NOAA resources that come out on that one. Pete?
Yeah, well, I'm seeing that we have on May, June, and July.
Yep.
What's the coalition's direction in regards to expanding other water safety events throughout the year?
Great question. How do we get more events throughout the year? A fall event, a winter event? Great. I'm so happy you asked. We're going there. Okay. Rob, anything? Nope. Okay. So another thing that we're planning on hosting. Yes? Questions? You good?
My name is and my question is, in Sun City, they only have gym. Not saying that because I have heard of people drowning, but it's been like a hush. So how would we get involved with the gym managers?
Yeah. Okay. So getting involved with maybe not municipalities, but other gyms like 24-Hour Fitness or something like that. Liddy, go ahead. Thank you.
Almost every private gym will partner up with your local city or special district as long as you provide them with something as a benefit. So you put their logo on there, so you let them have a table at your water safety event. We invite them sometimes to our in-services to let their lifeguards just see a different type of training. But the local gyms have been really wonderful about partnering up just because they see the need to, especially the first ones you want to hit up are the ones that have babysitting or daycare options.
Thank you. Okay. Leaf. Rip Current Awareness Week was 3 weeks ago. Great. So 2023.
So that
Yeah.
that was our 2023 model.
Yeah, plan. Yeah.
Thanks,
yeah.
Joe.
Thank you.
We got that covered.
All right. Plowing ahead. Something that we are planning is a webinar series that will likely run in non-summer months. And what this is going to look like are short 60-minute from 12 to 1 p.m. sessions hosted on Zoom that are going to be topic specific. So we're going to plan and host one on childhood drowning. We're going to plan and host one on coastal drowning. We're going to plan and host one specifically on river safety, right? This is an opportunity for us to invite experts in. One of the benefits of the Zoom era is that we can now get experts from anywhere on the planet. So inviting experts in to come in and speak to our network, to the coalition. It's also an opportunity for us to showcase and highlight programs at work. So these guys, Leslie and the Huntington Beach lifeguards, came up with a really incredible program called SALT, where they're training surfers basic life-saving techniques. So highlighting a program like that on a webinar like this is going to give somebody else in Northern California who goes, I'm looking to do something cool in coastal safety. That's an awesome program. I want to do that, right? Or it's going to give a firefighter an opportunity to hear about the awesome work that Mike Filson has done through the fire department in Chula Vista. So highlighting programs that work and sharing lessons and experience are on the agenda for this webinar series. We don't really know how many we're going to do, probably 5 or 6 before the end of the year. So every 6 weeks, every other month or so is what we're planning on. But this is the plan for that. Like I said, planned topics: inland open water drowning prevention, child and adolescent water safety, water competency education, mostly because I've been in this sector a long time and I still don't know what water competency means. So Nicole and Pete can help us understand what that means. But throwing it out to you, if you have ideas on what would be a good topic to host a webinar on, let's chat about that.
So events. Before we get into other events, we're going to talk about 23. Yes, we are planning on doing a water safety summit in 2023. We've done the first 2 in Newport Beach. We are happy to have everybody come back here. We're also looking to expand the coalition, as we said, and get others involved. So do we go somewhere else?
Napa.
I've heard Napa many times. I just heard that in my ear, I think. Russian River area, I've heard, long lunches or early dismissals for Napa. But bring those ideas to us, not necessarily right here and now, because we have a lot of time to plan this event, but in the next 4 to 6 months, we're going to have to decide where we want to go. Again, we'd be really happy to host back here, but we also want to highlight and get to other areas and experience other areas in the Drowning Prevention Network. Working groups. We talked about this is your organization. This is where everything happens in the working groups. This is where we've started last September, identified chairs. We have many of the chairs here in the room today. We appreciate all the hard work they've done. We appreciate all the hard work they will do, but they can't do it with other people around it. And this is the opportunity for everybody to get involved. This is, as we say, the engine of the coalition. This is where an idea turns into action. So come ready to work. And that's what the purpose of the working groups, and that's why it's titled. These are our current working groups: data, public health, barriers and entrapment, and electrical safety, life jackets, PFDs, other flotation devices. We talk a lot about, we've heard about the Hawaii, Florida has it, the buoy system on their beaches. Is that good for California? Is that good for lakes, rivers? Is there an opportunity to expand? So there's other flotation, water safety, water competence, swim lessons, supervision, bystander rescue. This is one of our new ones. And the other one is the lifeguards and emergency response. It doesn't mean you have to be a professional in one of these areas. You can participate in one, you can participate in 2, or all 6. I know Pete sits on 3 or 4, which is awesome. And if you got the time and you got the effort and you want to do it, do it. And so you sign up. I mean, I haven't really talked to the working group chairs, but there's 10 to 18 people, 10, 15 people on each group right now. But what if we had 20 or 30 or even 40? Like I said, I'm not sure if the chairs will really want that, but the more the merrier. It's what we want to do. For the work groups, what we end up wanting to do here is we're going to have we're going to do a work group chair meeting probably within the next month, 45 days. So we'll get all the chairs to get together on Zoom, and we'll try to see how it pans out and see where we want to go. Kind of an idea is as we go through the National Water Safety Action Plan, there is a blue ribbon panel. I believe Megan is there. Megan stepped out. Or is she here? Yeah, so there's a blue ribbon panel that's being identified now. Some of you may be on it. Some of you, if you want to be involved in the blue ribbon panel, you'll get to see the recommendations. You'll get to focus on one area. You'll get to kind of make comments and suggestions before others see it. After this panel comes out, and there's maybe a few tweaks here and there, it'll go into the Delphi survey. We want to be able to be involved in that because California is very powerful. California has a lot of opinions, but more so expertise. And if we get involved, we're going to be able to drive and then be ready for when the plan is out and dive right into it and make it our own. So there is a lot of opportunity. So the thought is as soon as this Delphi survey is available to us, we'll be on email, on the phone, contacting everybody and making sure that you all have an opportunity to make comments. And I know Megan is just excited about seeing 487 comments from California on the, well, we don't want comments on our Julie and I's.
Yeah.
It's perfect, right? Yeah. So the other 4, go ahead. No, we're kidding. We want your comments. We want your feedback. And that's how we're going to make it better and make it good.
So as we move from the National Water Safety Action Plan and start looking at a California plan, what that will look like in the next 2 or 3 years is a document that is probably a 5-year plan. And in that document, it will outline our priorities. So we're waiting for the national plan so we can let them do most of the work. But when it comes time for the California plan, the way that I've seen this happen in other places is that it is a document that you can point to and then go to your city councilor or your mayor and you say, hey, look, it is in this document in the California state plan that we need to be offering inclusive swim lessons, and our city doesn't have that. Everybody, it's in the plan. It's saying that, lifeguarded beaches should be a priority in areas with high visitation. We have a beach in wherever, Central Northern California, with high visitation and no lifeguards. Our county, our city, our state park needs to be looking at supplying lifeguards here. So it's statements like that, but it offers you something to point to and say, this is a priority government. We need to be doing this, right? Or let's go to the insurance companies and say, this is in the state, or this is in the California strategic plan. This is, what we need to be doing.
So more on the lines of the working groups, what we said, we'll probably get one Zoom call in prior to summer with everybody. Chairs, you probably have 2 or 3. After summer's over, September, we'll probably reconvene similar to what we did last year, depending on where we are with the Delphi survey. If it's that time, maybe the discussions are on that, but we're going to lead up into a fall workshop. And we did it. We were hoping to have it in person last fall, but we didn't. We had it on Zoom, which worked pretty good. But we would hope that in the fall, we have a fall workshop. It's not going to be a summit-style conference. It'll be a working meeting. So that's when we would try to bring everybody together for the working groups. It wouldn't be 200 people or 300 people unless there's 200 people on the working groups. But we would be able to manage you and be able to give good direction, and the chairs would have their directions and go off with their groups and make tangible items for the future and being able to implement. So like I said, the working groups are the most important piece to this puzzle, bottom up, right? I've heard that many times with John Abdu over here, the pyramid working from the bottom up. You're not successful at the top if you don't have the good people on the bottom. Not saying that the working groups are the bottom. They're the most important part. That's what we want to do. So lots of things to come. You might have a little break leading up into summer, a couple webinar series, maybe one meeting, kind of look for that Delphi survey, and then we're going to roll in September. That's our intent.
Okay. The other thing that's coming up for the working group. So again, network, everybody, anybody, super inclusive webinar series, brought water safety proclamations. You want to get more involved, you join a working group. The other thing that's coming up for the working groups is building out this idea of a hub. And the hub right now is not very well defined, but it is becoming more defined. But it basically has two purposes. One is public facing. So if my auntie is looking for some information on how to fit a life jacket, she has the best information on how to fit a life jacket right there. If she wants some information on beach safety, we can get all the videos on beach safety and put them in one spot, right? So there's this public facing piece, but then there's this internal piece, right? Where the internal piece would kind of have two components. One, a contacts area. So if I work for a fire department and my fire department currently doesn't have any water safety stuff, and I want to talk to another fire department that does a lot of water safety stuff, I know that I can go talk to Mike Filson from Chula Vista, and I can go talk to OCFA, and I can talk to San Diego City Fire, all the people who are doing the work in the space. Okay, so contacts. The second piece is information and resources on messaging programs, intervention, evaluation, et cetera. And this is best practice. So we want to get some information, put it in the same place where, and I think that there's two things that happen here. If a family foundation wants, best practice on communicating with new parents, maybe somebody already has that out there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. The other thing is that, say, a fire department or a pediatrician wants best practices on information for new pools. They don't need to go look it up, or they don't need to go, reinvent it. They can go find it. So this hub is a working process. We're going to be defining and really working out the kinks of this in the next 5 to 6 months. Dr. Simonian, who you saw on Zoom yesterday, gentleman with Dr. Simonian with the bow tie from Fresno, also has an informatics background. So he is going to be really instrumental in helping us put this together. So big shout out to Dr. Simonian. And you will hear more information about the hub, but the working groups will be really instrumental in populating the actual content of what is in that hub, right?
Right. And they also think the last thing on the working groups is we have our working groups set, but that doesn't mean they're final. So we plan on building on that as well. We've talked about information, a PIO or public information working group. We talked about a social media presence. We kind of started the social media presence, but we're not expert at it. If there's people in this room that are expert at social media, come help us out. If there's other pieces where we get to that and that expertise, let us know and we can build on this.
Great. So network, anybody and everybody.
Comment over there.
John.
There's a question on the hub.
Yep.
And you may have said this already in the past, but for example, like the conferences, the last 2 days, and then the hub, will there be a spot on the hub where it has
Yes.
everyone's contacts, all the presentations, all the information for all this?
Yep. Video recordings, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah. So I think another big part of that, I'm a researcher. Another big part of the hub would be like a library. You want a paper on water competency education programs, I'll go find stuff. You want a paper on lifeguard effectiveness, I'll go find stuff. That would be a huge part of it. Melissa.
So are you looking to have it be more policy centric? Because a lot of that stuff is
Yes. Okay. So challenges, two or three or four big challenges. One, there's a couple of these. And so over the next couple of weeks, we will be working out what does this look like? We don't want to duplicate things. If there's a way to link into existing systems that already are kind of doing this, we want to try and do that. The other thing, which is a really important challenge, is that we want to make this thing manageable. And somebody from a federal agency described his intranet as just being a nightmare. And so we don't want to make it clunky, right? We want to make it actually useful for you. So figuring out what that looks like is on our to-do list over the next couple months. That kind of nothing answer. Yeah. Okay. So network, anybody and everybody, you want to get more involved. This is what the working groups are going to do. We're going to move ahead now and talk about the advisory council and the board. And this is more organizational information, like on the Water Safety Coalition and what the structure is looking like. So we will be putting together a California Water Safety Coalition Advisory Council. And what that council looks like, it's going to be the working group chairs, and it's also going to have institutional representatives where we'll be formally asking other organizations to send a representative. The purpose of the advisory council is to basically guide the board of directors in the early days on programming, on decision-making, event planning, that sort of thing. So very coalition activity specific. We're working on building this out, and again, informing the board in these kind of early days. The board, as it moves forward, is much more organization and sustainability focused. So if you can kind of see the advisory council as being hyper drowning prevention, water safety focused, and the board being more organizational, future direction, strategic plans, finances, etc. Board. We talked about the board yesterday, the founding board. We have actually, since we met the last time, we had a board meeting on Sunday, and our founding board was our original, myself, Will Koon, Megan Ferraro, Chris Carlson, and Julie LaPiccolo. We added Karen Koon Sunday. So congratulations, Karen. Welcome to our board. With that, we also have an intent to add at least one more board member in the coming months. We have not identified that person yet. We would like it to represent what we have seen over the last couple days on everything on the Drowning Prevention Network and the space that we're in. So when we talk about a representation of drowning and drowning rates and water safety and experts in this field, we want the board to reflect that as well. So we want to identify one person, hopefully in the next 2-3 months at the longest, and put that person on the board as well. So we would have 7. And so if you're interested, let us know, and we are going to also develop a process on how we make new board members and future appointments to the board. Right now, our current board, or the founding 5, we have identified term limits. And so we don't want this to be stagnant, be the good old boys club, as we've heard in the past. We want good representation. We want good turnover. We want new ideas, fresh ideas. So there's a 3-year term limit on the board of directors. And you can do 2 terms, but after that, we wanted to be able to say we want new people. And if there's an opportunity to have new people involved, they should be involved. Because there's a lot of good people in this room, and we don't want to lose you. There was a comment yesterday from Jennifer Rubin. She was on Zoom. She made a comment about trust, and she made a comment about longevity. If you have trust in your organization and you have longevity in your organization, it's going to be successful. And that's really powerful statement, and that's what we want to build here. So, next slide. Or did you want to say something? Yeah, just to follow up on Rob's point, with both the advisory council and the board of directors, looking like the state is a priority. We recognize that the board right now does not represent the state. We don't look like the state, okay? As we grow and evolve, that is a priority, and it's something that is conscious in almost every meeting that we talk about.
Financial sustainability, that is a key piece to this puzzle. We've obviously had great partnerships with the Ben Carlson Foundation, the Zach Foundation, the Jasper Ray Foundation. We have been thankful for all the time, effort, and finances that they put into this so far. Obviously, we can't have expectations of that lasting, and we need to create a financial plan. We were incorporated as an organization on January 5th. We had our first board meeting to become kind of official on February 15th. We're in the process for applying for our 501c3 status. We said this yesterday. Right now, the Ben Carlson Memorial Scholarship Foundation is our fiscal sponsor, which does not mean that they are funding this whole thing. It means that since they are a 501c3 organization and they have that tax nonprofit status, We can run everything through that organization. So if money comes in and if someone needs that tax deduction, the money will go through the Ben Carlson Foundation and over to the coalition. We opened a bank account last week. If you donated money to the workshop, that's where your money went. So that is now in the bank account. Honestly, it's not much. But what we are here to say is we are not here to steal your money. We are not here to take money or ask for money. It would be great, but we're not here to officially say we want 5 nonprofit organizations to fund us $50,000 a year. No, that is not the intent. We've done this so far, like I said, with the backing of a few organizations and with some of the donations that have come in and the sponsors that we appreciate their support for this summit. But everybody, we are not fighting for a piece of your pie. We want to make the pie bigger. We want to make the pot bigger and grow the pot. And how do we do that? That's a great question. And we're not there yet. And if everybody had the answer, we might not be here because the funding would be flush. So how are we going to get that? Obviously, there's grants. We've heard a lot about it, but grants. Is there a grant writer in the room that could help us out? We'll take it because I don't have the finance and the know-how to write a grant. I've tried in the past. I've never gotten one, So we need grant writers. We need sponsorship, obviously. But are there other funding sources? Obviously, the government has money. Can we tap into that government funding? If we have the backing of the public health department, is it possible to get government funding? Hopefully. I mean, we've learned that the CDC is getting some money and allocating it to drowning prevention. That's going to the national stuff right now. But if they have future fundings that are allocated, maybe that's a piece. And so, like I said, we are not here to say, we want your money. We want to make the money grow and get bigger. And yes, we want a piece of that pie. And hopefully that means your piece will be bigger as well. You're going to talk about the last piece?
Sure. Yeah. So there's 2 pieces. The last bullet point here is it says no membership. And there's 2 parts to this. One, there's going to be no dues, right? We don't need you to pay, or we don't want you to pay $25 or $50 a year. I'd much rather you donate that $50 to a group in your community who's doing great water safety work. So there's the financial piece of no members. The second piece is more of a philosophical organizational piece. And we've specifically chosen the word network over membership because membership implies that there's members and non-members. And we very intentionally want to make sure that there's nobody that's excluded or left out. So both of those pieces, there won't be any dues. If you really want to give us $25 a year, we'll take it. But there's no dues. And then there are no members. You're part of the network. We're just going to close with this. This is our vision. This is our mission. This is also evolving. And I would expect that this is not going to look the same in 5 years. It might not look the same in 3 years, which is okay. We're a growing organization. We're evolving. We're really, really grateful for all of you for your time over the past 2 days. With that, that's all that we've prepared. We're very, very happy to entertain some open discussion in the room. We can also end it and then stand up here and come have a conversation off the mic. So is there any final thoughts, Rob? No? Any burning questions? Back there? No. All right, let's do this. Thank you guys very much for coming. Thank you to everybody who's organized. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to be here with you guys. We're hanging around. Let's continue this conversation. But yeah. Yes, please.
Okay, so I was thinking about this in the middle of the night last night, and Rob and Will have given all of us, like in the room that have been supporting all of you, all of us, like so much kudos for the work that we've done, and I'm not sure that we've like properly addressed how much work Will and Rob have put into this, and I just want to give them a round of applause. You guys are honestly amazing and inspiring, and we have to acknowledge that we would not be here if it wasn't for you. Does anyone else want to say something about them? Did I cover it? Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Julie. All right, everybody. Thank you.